amazing turnout of family, of friends, and of people who love Herbert Jones. I think that's outstanding. No, that's okay. We're here, of course, to honor Herbert, but there are a few housekeeping chores that have to be done first. I would like to thank the folks at Owl's Head Transportation Museum. Rob, who is standing right here, Nikki, who is in the back in the doorway there, and Kevin, who I think is in the front office. I think he grabbed a couple of cookies and ran for the front office. And I would like to thank them for hosting this event and for giving us this wonderful facility in which to have this celebration tonight. Thank you very much. All right. My name is John Wood. I am the FAA... Oops, one more piece of housekeeping information. The folks at the museum asked if the children go outside those doors to that they be accompanied. So they want them to be accompanied because there are a lot of things out there that are breakable. And we know how kids are. We know how we are. So, but my name is John Wood. I'm the FAA Safety Team Program Manager. I work for the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and I work in Portland, Maine. We have a Flight Standards District office there, and we cover Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And it is my honor to be here tonight with Rob Reckert. Rob is our FSDO manager. He actually manages the entire office and takes care of all of the children down at the FSDO. We are here to make a presentation, two presentations actually. The first presentation is a presentation most of you are here for tonight, and that is the Master Pilot Award presentation to Herbert. And following that presentation, I will be putting on an aviation safety seminar for any pilots in the room that want to stick around, talking about loss of control. And so to get started on this presentation tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Rob. Rob's actually going to be the person that makes the presentation to Herbert. Rob, it's all yours.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. As you can imagine, everybody's lives get very busy, but what a testament to Herbert and his family and friends to get this many people to show up for this award ceremony. I haven't been the manager very long, so I'm not going to say that, oh well, in my experience I've never seen this many people. But the 3 or 4 that I've gotten to do since moving to Maine, you guys have blown it out of the, knocked it out of the park. So I think John would echo that statement. So this is a pretty big deal. The FAA has 2 awards. One, named after the Wright brothers, and the other named after the Wright brothers mechanic for mechanics who've been mechanics for 50 years. So in this case, we're talking about Herbert who's been a pilot for 50 years. That's a pretty big milestone to get across. There's some other stipulations there about not breaking the law. If you had some sort of accident, it wasn't your fault. So to get to this point, imagine how many times things had to go right, or in all reality, how good at being a pilot Herbert really is to get to this point and not have had to have those events in his life. So what will happen tonight is what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk a little bit about Herbert's flying history, share with you the recommendations from his coworkers, co-family in aviation that recommended him for the award, and then invite his family wants to come up and share some stories and feelings about it as well. The Wright Brothers Award, sponsored by the administrator of the FAA. We keep the FAA, when I mean we, I mean the FAA, we keep a book in Washington, D.C., and everybody's name who's received the Wright Brothers Award goes in this book in Washington, D.C., that's in FAA headquarters, in the lobby, and you can go and see who's in the book. I think if you were to ever go to D.C. and sneak in there, there's some pretty tall company for people that are in that book. And surprised on who isn't, because maybe something just didn't go right for them one day in their flying history. So, as I talk about this, I like to have a little bit of humor about this. You know, I've been in the FAA for 8 years. I'm 38 years old, and I end up going out dealing with guys, talking to people that are significantly older than me, have been around longer. But what I always find amazing about these subjects, because I've been interested in aviation as long as these guys have, looks like they're starting, 7, 8 years old with jackets, making models. My parents said to me at 14, "What do you want to do, Rob?" And I said, "I want to fly around and blow stuff up." I kid you not. So it gets into your blood, and it gets into what you want to do in flying. But what I find so interesting about doing these awards is seeing what's happened in 50 years. I don't think I'm going to see in my lifetime or in aviation 50 years the milestones that Herbert's seen. Open cockpit biplanes learning to fly in a Boeing Stearman, to SR-71s, Mach 3 airplanes, vector thrust fighter jets, stealth technology, the space shuttle. I just don't personally think we're going to have those leaps and bounds in technology in the next 30, 40 years that Herbert's seen in his career. Herbert's first solo was in the Army Air Corp primary training in a Stearman on February 8th in 1944. In the Army Air Corp primary basic and advanced training from February of 1944 to June of 1944. Moving on to Air Corps fighter pilot training in the AT-6 Texan from June 1944 to November of 1944. Army Air Corps cargo transition training in the C-46 from November 1944 to February 1945, and then as an Army Air Corps pilot in the C-47, flying the hump from February 1945 to January 1946. So, there was a lot of dates there. First solo in February of 1944. In February of 1945, 1 year later, he's flying the C-47 across the hump during World War II. A lot of dates in there, but only 1 year. Herbert continued in the Army Air Corps Reserve from January 1946 through November of 47, received a civilian flight instructor rating in 1948, and served as a flight instructor from 1948 to 1986. He received a single-engine seaplane rating in 1950, started Stonington Flying Service in 1950, and was the chief pilot and chief executive officer for Stonington Flying Service from March 1950 through April of 1986. He owned and operated his own Cessna 182 from April of 86 to 1994, and flew privately, continuing to fly after the sale of his Cessna from 1994 to 2013. A total of 69 years of continuous aviation flying. So I'm going to ask, you remember Mr. Jeffrey Allen Pate? Mr. Pate?
You got to really holler at it.
Jeffrey Allen Pate. Yep. He's got some nice things to say about him. I know him. Okay. He says he's known Herbert Jones for 31 years and highly recommends him for the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. I have known him to always operate aircraft in a safe and professional manner, be of good moral character, that's pretty hard as a pilot, and an outstanding individual who is respected in the aviation community. My knowledge and association with the nominee consists of flying with him since a very young age, during which time he owned Stonington Flying Service and beyond. He is my grandfather and I hold pilot certificate. We don't need the number. All right. Next letter that Mr. Wood received was from Kevin Waters, standing in the back, so we get to embarrass you too. It says, "Dear Mr. Wood, I have known Herb Jones for 17 years and highly recommend him for the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. I have known him to always operate aircraft in a safe and professional manner. My knowledge and association with the nominee consists of flying in Penobscot Bay Islands as a line pilot and flight instructor. Herb is always forthcoming with advice and suggestions as how to fly these islands safely and skillfully. I value his advice and support dearly." And the last letter recommendation received was from Mr. E. Vance Bunker. It says, "I've known Herb Jones for more than 40 years and I would highly recommend him for the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. I have known him to always operate aircraft in a safe and professional manner. My knowledge and association with the nominee consists of flying with him as both a student and fellow pilot. I got to know Herb over 40 years ago when he began a flying service to the Penobscot Bay Islands, one of which was my home. Shortly after, he taught me to fly, and I've been a private pilot ever since. I'm not sure what the business model was there. Respectively, Mr. Bunker. And I know you guys would like to, for the family, would like to share some.
Yeah, I think the little guy there wants to read it for me.
Okay. It's all yours.
He'll have a lot drier eyes.
Hi, my name is Brendan, and I'm Papa's great-grandson. I'm reading this for my dad. Since I was a little boy, and I have always wanted to be a pilot, I remember visiting my Papa as a small child and being completely amazed at the fact that he had an aircraft and flew around to the island, providing a lifeline to all those in need. I know some children love superheroes, and the idea that someone can fly just fascinates them beyond belief. But Papa was and is my hero. He truly could fly, and he used his gift to help those in need, providing critical lifelines to those residents of the islands by bringing supplies they needed to live. Providing an air ambulance to those in need at a moment's notice, and more often than not, without charge. He is a kind-hearted individual that anyone would be extremely fortunate to be compared to, such as a comparison hurdles them into the upper echelons of kindness. Most of us will never be able to achieve, no matter how hard we try. His mission in life has been the gold standard for me, and I hope to follow as closely in his footsteps as humanly possible. You have led an amazing life and been such an amazing person. We love you, Papa. Congratulations on this long overdue accomplishment.
Give Papa a hug.
So at this point, I'd like you to come on up. And from my understanding, I was told that her name is Linda, or 11 of 12.
Number 11.
Come up as well. And the first thing we have for you is a plaque for 50 years of dedicated service in aviation safety from the Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration. The Wright Brothers Master Pilot is presented to Herbert Jones in recognition of your contributions to building and maintaining the safest aviation system in the world through practicing and promoting safe aircraft flight operations for 50 consecutive years. Congratulations. Never get anything from the government. The second I have is a certificate of appreciation from the administrator of the FAA, Mr. Michael Huerta, and it says the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award is presented to Herbert E. Jones in appreciation of your dedicated service, technical expertise, professionalism, and many outstanding contributions to further the cause of aviation safety. Thank you. Thank you very much. And last, we have a tie pin for you.
Thank you.
And we had talked to your family, and Linda was going to accept on behalf of your wife. So thank you. It's all yours.
appreciate everyone coming.
Would anybody like to share a story? Have anything to say?
I'm Brett Folger, I'm one of the pilots at Penobscot Island Air. And one day I was over at Vinyl Haven, no, I'm sorry, I was at Stonington. And I was waiting for somebody that I was picking up. Car drove in, fellow stopped, got out of the car, walked around, and I'm kind of a fellow who says, "Hi, how are you, who are you?" And he walked over and he said, "Hi, I'm Herb Jones." And I said, "Holy mackerel, I've heard of you before." And he said, "Well, yeah, I flew a little bit in some of the days gone by. So Herb, thank you for everything that you've done leading the way for Penobscot Air to go where it has, and it was a real treat for me to meet you. And by the way, thank you also as a veteran from World War II. That's wonderful."
Anybody else, any of you young folks in the back want to try your public speaking skills?
So, I spent summers in Rockland with the whole gang, and I used to roller skate in the hangar and wait for Papa to come back so I could hitch a ride on the next trip out. And I think we brought home baby seal, boxes of baby chicks, pregnant women in distress, and my favorite was when we would go in the push me pull me, right? Is that what it was called? The Sky
Yeah.
Master?
And
And,
named after.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was named after. I mean, I was
That was named after me.
Linda Sue. Linda
So
Sue.
anyway, he would take me out, we'd be up for hours. I lived for it, I loved it. I used to harass him. I went through the box of 45s, the blue box of 45s in the hangar, playing the music while I was waiting and roller skating, and I'd get yelled at for being out there on the bike, the 3-speed on the runway, waiting for Papa. And he'd take me up, and I would get to drive.
Yeah.
And he would take his hands off, and I'd be up there, going along, thinking I was all that. It was awesome. Just so many experiences flying with Papa. Thanks.
Next. Anybody else? Okay, well, before we kind of wrap up this part of the presentation, it would be remiss of me if I did not thank Jeff for the work that he did getting all of this started. Jeff and I became very, very good phone pals.
That's right.
From quite a distance away, so Jeff, thank you. This is what we'll do. We'll take a 10-minute break. I'm sure most of you don't want to sit here to listen to me talk about loss of control. But we'll take a 10-minute